My name is Will Neame. I've been brewing beer professionally for nearly 10 years. In 2015, I discovered kombucha and began brewing it professionally with Old Tree Brewery in Brighton. Kombucha is a little known drink in the UK, and I wanted to learn more about it, so I set off to the west coast of North America to visit kombucha breweries and find out more.
Oddity Kombucha.
Community Kombucha.
Lionheart Kombucha.
Dr. Hop's Kombucha beer.
This is Marin Kombucha.
This is House Kombucha.
Ultracraft Kombucha.
Right. So 3 ingredients.
Yeah.
Honey, tea, water. I guess 4. Bacteria.
Yeah.
Yeast. Sure. The list goes on. But
so we do a primary ferment of tea and honey to keep the culture really healthy and clean, and then we do a secondary ferment with each formula.
Yeah, they're just rinsing off the flavour.
Getting the most out of the leaves because it's so concentrated. The process now of diluting it. We'll then put the SCOBY on top, cover it, let it sit for about 7 days, and it's literally as easy as that.
I think that it brings out a certain harshness when you try and speed up the process. I know at a hotter temperature we're going to move quicker. I know that if we didn't oxymel, but if we just brewed our tea, it would be a lot quicker. It takes a lot of planning and organization to be doing things the way that we're doing, but I think this extra work shows through in the finished product. I think you can taste so much complexity of flavor. You can taste the tea, you can taste the idiosyncrasies brought in by the honey that we use as our sugar for feeding the SCOBY.
With working with honey, and working with high levels of botanicals, and it's one of the most challenging products to produce.
I think the proudest aspect of our kombucha that I would say is that we are all organic start to finish, from our tea, all of our suppliers, all of our fruits, our vegetables, our flowers, they all come from organic farms.
It wants to become vinegar. So you're kind of carrying this hot potato. If you're keeping it fresh, you've got this hot potato in your hands and it's like, I'm gonna just create it and get it to the consumer before it turns into vinegar, or before it explodes, or before it, gets too strong in alcohol. It's a reflection of a cultural shift in our eating and drinking habits.
How did you first discover kombucha?
I was on a trip to actually Portland and Kauai, and noticed that it was kind of everywhere. And upon returning to BC, my girlfriend's mom serendipitously suggested that I give kombucha a try, and fell in love with it. And then about a month later, I was on a bike ride searching for kombucha, super thirsty, and discovered that nobody here kind of knew what it was. So from then, I decided it was probably a good idea to start a business.
And I'm also really inspired to create brews that are interesting, they're complex, and so they can be a part of sophisticated adult nightlife culture. If you're not drinking alcohol, this can be as satisfying as any alcoholic brew.
Hi, I'm here with Heather from Iggy's Honey Brew Kombucha. We're in downtown Seattle at Eve Restaurant, and we're drinking one of their fine kombucha brews. Heather's going to tell us a little bit about this brew.
Yes, we're served on tap here, and tonight they've got the Golden Elixir being served up, which is a fresh organic turmeric root brew. We get our turmeric from Kolokai Farm on Kauai, Hawaii, and we brew it up with tulsi, holy basil, ginkgo leaf, guayusa, and of course a base of honey and green tea. Cheers!
Cheers! Man, that's tasty.
There's 8 days upstairs and about 8 days down here where it's bottled. So the bacterial processes stop, but the yeast fermentation continues and makes it drier and fizzier.
Yeah.
As well as increasing the alcohol. But that's not our goal, but that's what happens.
Sure.
If we want to get it fizzy.
it seems to be quite a common thing in the industry that people have concerns over alcohol levels. Is that is controlling alcohol anything that at Soma you find challenging?
Well, I'm going to answer that in two parts.
Sure.
One is that, so I discovered a way to brew for a long time without making alcohol, which is good because alcohol not only will affect people, then maybe they don't need to have that effect, and it also it is a waste product of yeast, and so it can kill organisms. So that's not good. And so I figured out a way to brew for a long time without making alcohol. Alcohol turns into vinegar. Most people stop their fermentation process because it gets too vinegary and they want to drink it or bottle it before it turns, vinegar. Mm-hmm. So we're able to brew for a long time. It takes 60 to 90 days for a lot of the kombucha, the benefits that are in kombucha to develop. And so other companies that just do a quick week fermentation, it doesn't have all the time to develop all the good stuff.
It doesn't just become very vinegary.
Ours does not.
No. Okay. And so if one were to brew for 60 to 90 days at home, say, then one can achieve the same thing, or is your process something that your culture is it unique in any way that it's enabled you to achieve that?
It is.
Okay.
We started out making our kombucha with this Vetco coffee maker over here, and all you need is hot water to make tea. But as we've upgraded, we've moved to this 10-barrel brew kettle. So right here we fill it up with filtered water. We heat 10 barrels, which is a little over 300 US gallons. And so then we make tea here. We have a pump that will hook up our hoses and fill up these fermentation tanks. Here they're insulated, so the tea will stay warm. It'll stay above 80 degrees the entire cycle of the entire fermentation cycle. And so that process can take as little as a week or a little more.
Yeah.
And the end result is similar to something that might have taken a month otherwise if the temperature was lower. So the temperature control of our tanks really allows us to maximize efficiency. When we were using these smaller tanks, you can see a heater set up on the ground. It's tricky to keep them at the right temperature, but these tanks, these insulated tanks, the 10-barrel size, we have 3 more of those on the way. These are our first 2, and we have 3 more coming, and we're just going to be able to really fine-tune our process to the exact temperatures for each flavor.
Did you say the temperature controlled?
Yes. We can electronically control the temperature, but for now we just have a thermometer, and it's not so much they're temperature controlled as they're insulated. And so when you have this much liquid in an insulated container, it takes weeks for it to cool down, and by the time it cools down, the fermentation is completed.
Yeah.
These thin-walled fermenters, they will cool down in a few days. So when we make a batch, it's nice and warm one day. A few days later, it's ice cold, and so we have to heat it. We have good luck with keeping them warm for the first few days, and then the temperature can drop down, but the sugar consumption by the yeast really needs a warm, above 80-degree temperature to consume all those sugars, and that's what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to make a dry kombucha that doesn't have excess sugar.
Sure.
If you want it to stay sweet, you could drop the temperature down sooner.
Yeah.
And there's probably tricks to do that, but that's not our style.
Do it. And then other people pasteurize, which at regular temperatures it's kind of the same thing, but
that seems to defeat the purpose of kombucha.
Well, maybe. Some say that the main benefit of kombucha is actually in the nutrients produced in the fermentation process. There's a lot of discussion about what the real definition of a probiotic is. So you know, I mean, it's definitely better than Red Bull, any kombucha. So that's good. And a lot of people drinking Coke and Pepsi, so any kombucha is better than that.
So what I'll do is I'll take all these different teas and herbs and I'll mix them up in this bin using this scale.
Yeah.
And then we'll blend it all together. We'll put it in large tea bags. And then what I do here is I have 190-degree water that I pour our organic cane sugar into to make just like sweet hot water. And then I steep the tea in that. Well, the tea brew is 150.
Yeah.
And then the total volume, because we do it in different steeping rounds.
Yeah.
So it'd be 300, 300, 300 for a max yield of 900. And then we always leave a 20% for starter in the tanks. Just a really strong vinegary to jumpstart the fermentation.
Yeah, sure. And you put scobies in with the tanks?
The SCOBY exists in that starter.
So you don't actually have a physical pellicle as such?
There is, yeah, that forms naturally. So the cultures exist in the liquid, and then they form the pellicle on top.
You don't put one in?
No, not necessarily. It just grows.
Sure.
Give it a week, and you'll have a good layer. So
yeah.
It's stratified, so it'll grow on the bottom and just keep going.
Yeah.
So if you let it go for a while, I just cleaned one out today, and it was about like that thick. So
how many brews have that done?
How many brews went through that? Oh man. Yeah, I would have to look. It might be 10, 15, somewhere in there.
Yeah. $34 of these.
1,000 gallons.
They're each 1,000 gallons.
Yep. But open air, organic cloth.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. I can show you the bright tank. So this is a standard 10-barrel bright tank that we are able to carbonate our kombucha overnight, and we are cycling through bright tanks. We can empty it mostly in a day, and so we have a second bright tank coming that will allow us to juggle batches a little more, and our bottling process is finally getting upgraded to a 4-head filler.
Sure.
So we're really excited about that. We have a new label machine coming that is going to be more automated. Right now we have to turn a crank every time we put a label on, and after 10,000 or so, your arm gets pretty tired. So
you just kind of tell them the ingredients or whatever.
You can dump that right into the vat, huh?
It's 25
Does he need
pounds.
all 25 pounds? Is that why?
Yep.
I'm like, this doesn't look like the right step, Tommy. I believe there's a weighing step that you're missing.
Cheers, yes. That sounds good. Smells good.
Yeah, this
Quite
is
a hoppy pale ale type smell.
Yep, exactly. This is a very hop forward idea.
There's some sort of fruity, earthy notes. Let's have a...
Yeah, I get like every possible citrus imaginable.
Yeah, that's it.
And tamarind.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's nice. It's nice and sour, like a good kombucha. It's got quite a nice, not overly full-bodied, but it's got a reasonable bit of body to it.
Yeah, it's very light for a beer, but it's pretty full body for a kombucha. That's kind of how I would think of it.
Yeah.
And the alcohol helps with that, right? This is about 7% alcohol.
Okay.
So maybe a little bit more.
For a beer of that strength, this would. I prefer beers that are on the lighter side, as the ABV goes up. So I think if this were a beer, I would say it's very, very drinkable, nice light-bodied.
The Brown administration is realizing that they're running out of time because Jerry Brown is only governor for another year, and they don't have the money committed from different water agencies around the state to build this.
I think we do a good job, and I think we do things that are true to ourselves, and the fact that you can support yourself doing that is amazing. So,
excellent.
Yeah.
Can I ask you your thoughts on the current mainstream food system?
It's horrifying, and it's making us ill, and it's making the planet ill.
12:30.
Okay.
Before I go to the market.
Excellent. Yeah, for sure. Yes. Yes.
But I do love them, and it'll be fun, and it gets me out of my comfort zone.
Can you tell me what is perhaps unique or unusual about your kombucha?
Yeah, we pay a lot of attention to it.
Yeah.
I think that's unique and unusual.
Yeah.
I think that we ferment kombucha. When we think about kombucha, we don't think about kombucha as an end. We think about kombucha as a means to an end, which is a delicious beverage, not some vinegary drink that then needs to be plied with cloyingly sweet fruit juice in order to balance it out. We sort of had our own notion of what kombucha ought to be, which is a very balanced, subtle, delicious beverage that could have all sorts of flavor profiles coming from the various species of yeast and bacteria and the communities that are responsible for the fermentation.